My name is Emily Carter, and this morning I signed a rental agreement for my own brother. I sat in my glass-walled office, 20 floors above Manhattan, the city humming beneath me. My silk blouse whispered against my skin as I reached for my coffee, Colombian roast, just the way I like it, with a hint of cinnamon. Outside, the Hudson shimmered in the early light, and my phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from my property manager.
Lease signed.
First month's rent paid by Daniel Carter. Daniel, my brother. The same man my parents once believed was more capable, more deserving. The same man they gave my inheritance to without blinking. I stared at the screen, the faintest smirk curling at the edge of my lips. If irony had a flavor, this moment tasted like the richest dark chocolate, bittersweet, but intoxicating. Most people who meet me now see the polished version, Emily in the designer heels, Emily whose nails are always freshly painted, Emily who seems like she's always had it together. What they don't see is the woman who built all this from nothing, or the girl who once stood in her childhood kitchen, trembling, as her parents told her the money her grandmother had left for her college would go to her older brother instead.
That girl is still inside me.
She just learned how to wear better armor. I lift my coffee cup and take a slow sip, letting the cinnamon warmth fill me. Daniel will be moving into one of my luxury apartments next week. He doesn't know I own the building.
Not yet.
I was 19 the day everything shifted. It was early summer in Willow Creek, Ohio, the kind of small town where everyone knew your family name, and mine had always meant respectability. My grandmother, Margaret Carter, had passed away the winter before. She was the kind of woman who smelled faintly of lavender, who kept lemon drops in her purse, and who, without fail, told me, "Emily, your independence will be your greatest treasure." When her will was read, she left me a sum that could cover 4 years of college and maybe a down payment on a little apartment someday. It felt like a ticket to the future I'd dreamed of. Until that morning in our kitchen. I remember Mom's voice, too calm for what she was saying. "Emily, your father and I have been talking, and we think it would make more sense for Daniel to receive the money. He has plans to expand his business, and, oh well, you're still young. You'll have other opportunities." I froze, my hand tightening around the mug of chamomile tea I'd been holding. But it was left to me. She wrote my name. Dad didn't meet my eyes. "Daniel will take care of you if you need it. This is for the good of the family." The lump in my throat was so heavy it hurt to swallow. Daniel leaned against the counter, not saying much, but I caught the way his mouth twitched, a flicker of satisfaction before he masked it. I felt erased. Later that day, I sat on the back porch with the summer air clinging to my skin, tears drying on my cheeks. In my hand was the only thing I had left from Grandma, a small silver locket with her initials engraved. Inside, a folded scrap of paper with her handwriting. "Make your own way, sweetheart. You can." It wasn't money, but it was a seed. That night, I packed a suitcase, just the essentials, and slipped the locket into my pocket. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't leave a note. I just stepped out into the humid Ohio night, boarded the first bus to New York City, and told myself I would never again wait for someone else to hand me my life. New York didn't welcome me with open arms. It greeted me with the smell of hot asphalt, the roar of traffic, and a shoebox-sized sublet in Queens where the radiator hissed louder than my own thoughts. I had $312 in my bank account, one suitcase, and my grandmother's locket. For the first few months, I worked anywhere that would have me, waiting tables at a 24-hour diner, handing out flyers on the street, cleaning offices at night. I learned to survive on peanut butter sandwiches and dollar coffee. But every time I opened my wallet and saw the faded scrap of paper in that locket, I felt a spark. One night, while bussing tables at the diner, I overheard a woman in a sharp navy blazer talking about a marketing firm looking for an assistant. Something in me, maybe desperation, maybe instinct, pushed me to speak up. "Excuse me," I said, probably too quickly. "I can type fast. I'm organized." I learned fast, too. The woman, Catherine Blake, looked me over with eyes that seemed to see straight through the grime of my double shift. She handed me her card. 2 weeks later, I was her assistant. And for the first time, Someone outside my grandmother believed I could be more. Catherine didn't coddle me. She threw me into the deep end, drafting proposals, pitching ideas, handling clients who were used to being told yes but needed to hear no. I made mistakes.
Plenty.
I once sent a proposal to the wrong client and thought my career was over. Instead, Catherine called me into her office, handed me a coffee, and said, "Learn from it. Then make sure your next idea is so good they forget this ever happened." I worked days at the firm, nights on freelance marketing projects for small businesses I found on Craigslist. Every extra dollar went into a separate account no one knew about. The wins came slowly. My first $1,000 contract. My first client who referred me without being asked. My first pitch that made a room go silent, the good kind of silent. 3 years in, I had enough to launch my own boutique agency. I called it Silvaline Strategies, a nod to the locket around my neck. I built it quietly, avoiding the temptation to post flashy success online. To my family back in Ohio, I was still finding my footing. In reality, I was signing clients whose marketing budgets were bigger than Daniel's entire business. I bought my first property, a modest 2-bedroom apartment, then another, and another. By year 7, I owned an entire mid-rise building in Manhattan. It wasn't just an investment, it was proof. Proof that the girl they underestimated could build something no one could take away. And I did it without a penny of the inheritance that was supposed to be mine. It was a Tuesday in late October when I got the message from my mother. "We're coming to New York for a few days. Thought we could visit." I almost laughed. In the past decade, my parents had never once visited me. They'd sent birthday cards, the occasional, "Hope you're doing well," but never a plane ticket. I suspected the trip wasn't really about me. My guess was confirmed 2 days later when Daniel called. I'm moving to Manhattan," he said, as if it were no big deal. "Found a place that's decent, not too far from Central Park. I'm signing the lease this week." I knew the address before he even finished saying it. It was my building. "Congratulations," I said smoothly, my voice even. "Sound like a good move for you." I didn't tell him I owned it. That part would come later. When they arrived in the city, I invited them over to my office. Technically, it was my agency's headquarters, but it occupied the entire penthouse floor. Tall windows framing the skyline, white oak floors gleaming underfoot, walls lined with contemporary art I'd collected over the years. They stepped out of the private elevator into the space, and I watched their eyes dart around. "This is nice," Mom said, her voice a little too controlled. Daniel ran his hand along the leather of the conference chairs.
Wow.
"You work here?" "I do," I replied, moving behind the marble-topped desk that overlooked the city. "Actually, I run the company. Silvaline Strategies. Ever heard of it?" Dad's brows pulled together. "You own it." "I built it," I said simply. "From scratch. With no help from anyone in this room." There was a moment of silence. The kind that feels heavy, like the air is holding its breath. Daniel forced a chuckle. "Well, that's impressive." I leaned back in my chair, crossing one leg over the other. "And about your new apartment, Daniel. I hope you enjoy it. The views are great from that side of the building." He frowned. "How do you know?" Then it clicked. His eyes widened. "You own it." "Every floor," I said. "Including yours. So technically you'll be paying me rent." Mom's lips parted, but no sound came out. Dad's gaze dropped to the floor. Daniel just stood there, a mixture of confusion and something sharper, maybe the first flicker of respect, maybe just disbelief. "You've been," he started slowly, "successful this whole time." "Yes," I said. "And I managed it without the inheritance you took from me." The words weren't shouted. I didn't need volume to make them land. Outside the window, the city moved on, taxis and pedestrians weaving through the streets below, oblivious to the small earthquake happening in this room. For years, they'd picture me scraping by, barely making ends meet. And maybe a part of them liked that image. It kept their choices from feeling so cruel. But now, standing in my penthouse office, they couldn't deny what was in front of them. Daniel swallowed hard. "So, what now?" I allowed the silence to stretch, then said, Now we talk about terms. I gestured toward the seating area near the windows, a plush white sofa, low glass table, the kind of place designed to make conversations feel civilized, even when they weren't. They sat. Daniel kept glancing around, as if he still couldn't decide whether to be impressed or uncomfortable. Mom smoothed her skirt. Dad avoided eye contact altogether. "I'm not here to punish anyone," I began, my voice calm but steady. "But I am done pretending that what happened years ago didn't matter. It did. It shaped every choice I made." Mom opened her mouth, but I held up my hand.
Please.
"Let me finish." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "Daniel, you'll stay in the apartment you rented. You'll pay market rent like any other tenant, no favors, no discounts. But here's the catch, you're going to build something of your own. No leaning on handouts from Mom and Dad. No expecting them to bail you out." He looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. "Dad," I continued, turning my gaze to him, "you're going to stop treating your children like investments, with different returns. We're adults now, but that doesn't mean your approval, or lack of it, doesn't matter." His jaw tightened, but he nodded once. "And Mom," I paused, letting my voice soften, "you're going to call me. Not just on birthdays. I don't care if it's about the weather, a recipe, whatever. But if you want to know me now, you have to actually know me." For a moment, the only sound was the muted hum of the city through the glass. "These aren't punishments," I added. "They're boundaries. And if you can't respect them, that's fine, but I'll protect my peace. I built my life without you, and I can keep it that way if I have to." Daniel shifted in his seat.
"So that's it?"
"I just pay rent and do my own thing." I smiled faintly. "That's it. You wanted independence, right? Now you'll learn what it actually feels like." He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told me he understood. Mom reached for my hand, tentative, almost shy. "I didn't realize how much I'd lost with you." I squeezed her fingers gently. "It's not too late. But I won't go back to being the girl you thought could be replaced." We sat there for a few minutes. No shouting, no accusations, just the quiet awareness that the ground between us had shifted. When they finally stood to leave, I walked them to the elevator. Daniel hesitated before stepping in. "Guess I'll see you around the building." I nodded. "You will." The doors closed, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was standing exactly where I was meant to be, on my own terms. 2 weeks later, I was walking through the lobby of my building when I spotted Daniel waiting for the elevator, a box under his arm. Not moving out, moving in. A plant stuck out the top, its leaves bent from the trip. He gave me a nod. Not the smug grin he used to wear, just a quiet acknowledgement. "Place is nice," he said. "Guess I'll have to work a little harder to afford it." "That's the idea," I replied. I didn't follow him upstairs. I had somewhere else to be. That afternoon, I took a rare break from work and walked to a small park tucked between brownstones, the kind of place that felt hidden from the rest of the city. I sat on a bench, sunlight filtering through the trees, and pulled out my grandmother's locket. The silver was worn now, the hinge a little loose, but it's still open to reveal her neat handwriting. "Make your own way, sweetheart. You can." I traced the letters with my thumb. Back when I first read them, they felt like a dare. Now they felt like a truth I had lived into. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "Tried that pumpkin bread recipe you sent. It turned out great. Call me when you can." I smiled. Small steps. I leaned back on the bench, letting the sounds of the city wash over me. The distant hum of traffic, a child's laughter, the faint notes of someone playing guitar. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight of proving myself. I had already proven it. The girl who once stood trembling in her parents' kitchen was gone. In her place was a woman who had built her own empire, piece by piece, brick by brick, without the inheritance that was supposed to be her foundation. I closed the locket and slipped it back around my neck. Some people spend their lives waiting for the world to hand them what's theirs. I learned the world doesn't owe you a thing, but you can still take everything it tried to deny you. And sometimes, it will pay you rent for the privilege.